Mrs. Kanayo Awani, Executive Vice President, Intra-Africa Trade Export Development Bank at the Afreximbank. Great to have you on the Global Business Report. I wanted to ask you, of course, with this being the Afrexim annual meetings here in Abuja, the theme on building the future on decades of resilience, what does that mean to you?
Well, for us, I think it's a theme that recognizes the 30 years of existence of Afreximbank and the journey and the evolution of the bank from a bank that probably nobody gave a chance of success. At the time it was being conceived by President Babakandeye of African Development Bank up until the past 10 decades of Professor Rama. And the achievements were indeed built on resilience. And that's, I think, is what it speaks to. It speaks to the huge accomplishments of the bank. It speaks to how the bank has become systemic to the African continent. And in particular, if you allow me, it also speaks to the impact we have made in transforming the African continent. In the past 10 years, we've worked on two strategic plans and sought to implement those strategic plans. One was to promote intra-African trade and AFCFTA implementation. The other one was industrialization and export development. We were acutely aware that you cannot promote intra-African trade without industrialization. Yeah. And the third was also to maintain our global leadership, global trade finance leadership. Maintaining it, as well as also our foray into the digital business. And finally, to remain relevant, as I mentioned, we had to be financially sustainable. And maintaining the commercial orientation of the bank, the commercial perspective, such that we reported the numbers that we now do with a $40 million balance sheet was also important. For us. So it means building on those years of hard work, of ensuring that the bank succeeded first, the bank consolidated, and the bank grew. We have a proposal, as a bank, is a proposal of growth, because we understand that capital is very important for this continent, and capital is what is lacking. Right.
Gotcha. Now, resilience is synonymous with Africa. Do you expect trade to be one of the most discussed topics of conversation during this week of the meetings?
No, of course. Trade and development will be on the forefront, front runner. And as Afreximbank, we're the trade finance bank of Africa, and of course the Caribbean, and will I say the diaspora. And we are about trade and development, ensuring that the use of trade for Africa's development. And that's what's going to be topical in different themes. The bank in itself has succeeded in putting trade, on its, as part of our agenda, trade, and especially in terms of intra-African trade. And I don't say that because I look after intra-African trade, but we do know that what is going on in the world today, globally, with the dynamics of geopolitics, with the dynamics of trade wars, that there's never been a better time to focus on intra-African trade. There's never been a better time to look inwards and thank our political leaders for the instrument of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. That will be topical in this event.
You talked about our political leaders. President Tinubu, of course, hosted the West Africa Economic Summit here in Abuja. There's so much going on in Abuja just over the weekend. And he said something. He said, we have to go from declarations to deals. There's been a lot of talk about all the deals that could be signed. Are you expecting some concrete deals to come out of these meetings?
I expect it to come from the ECOWAS meeting, but I also expect that to come from Afreximbank annual meetings. Yeah. And that is so true. We have to begin to walk the talk. Enough of talks and begin to do. So I do expect deals. I also expect that the ECOWAS will begin to, as the regional economic community, will begin to become more integrated as well and deliver on the, on its mandates. So yes, we expect deals. We expect deals here at Afreximbank as well. You know, and that's correct.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, there's so much going on in Nigeria. There's the Intra-Africa Trade Fair later on at the end of this month. Afreximbank is going to play a key role in that. What should the business community attending the roadshow, the Intra-Africa roadshow that's going to be taking place, what should they expect from that?
Well, the roadshow is basically to sensitize the Nigerian community about the Intra-African Trade Fair that will hold in Algeria during the 4th to 10th of September this year.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a sensitize. We've always done this. This is the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair. The first one being in 2018. But sequel to that, we always, try to hold roadshows in different, especially key African cities, or what we call intra-African trade hubs, to sensitize the business community. And as I mentioned earlier on, intra-African trade has to be front and center of the conversation for Africa's sovereignty, or to be able to take our destiny in our hands.
Yeah.
So this roadshow is to sensitize, to get people to understand what it's all about, where it is. It will go into even housekeeping details about visa and stuff.
Okay.
But importantly, it will speak to what is expected at the trade fair. What are the pillars? What are the verticals? What is the format and the structure of the trade fair?
Yeah.
And the fact that also the sectors that are going to become at play, and the various pillars, because the trade fair in itself is not a trade fair alone.
Yeah.
It is an investment promotion and trade promotion platform. We expect countries to use it as a platform to showcase their trade, investments, cultural, and even tourism opportunities.
Yeah.
We expect the creatives, for instance, to be able to take advantage of that platform to attract investments, to attract financing, to be able to attract buyers. We want to use it as a platform to enable market access.
Yeah.
Right? The automotive sector, too. We cannot talk about industrialization of our continent without thinking about automotive.
Right.
Just by the nature of the fact that the parts of a car and how you can have various supply and value chains associated with the vehicle. So that also has its own exhibition. It also has a summit around it. And we expect deals. We talked about deals.
Yeah.
There'll be B2B exchanges, so that people can come, consummate deals. But I think it's a huge platform. We call it the AFCFTA marketplace, and it is indeed. And we also expect other countries from outside of Africa, but essentially in the areas of capital goods.
Yeah. Fantastic. Looking forward to that. It's going to be big, as it always is with the Afreximbank involved. I want to ask you about, you talked about infrastructure industrialization, healthcare, very much a key part of that. You were instrumental as part of the team that put together the African Medical Center of Excellence, and which, of course, we Arise News covered that launch here. Can you speak to the vision behind that?
If I may, it actually was born out of a personal vision of President Orama, the president and chairman of the board of Afreximbank, through a personal experience, where he was, through that personal experience, came in contact with King's College, where he was healed, King's College Hospital, London. And before then, we already had a health care and tourism strategy, right? We also had a fund. We call it the Fund for Export Development in Africa, which is our impact equity fund. With all those, would I say, arsenal, he just thought that we should do something in the healthcare center, something quality medical center of quality healthcare. We thought we should promote medical tourism on the continent. Statistics which tell us that Nigerians spend about over $1 billion every year abroad on healthcare. It's important to conserve, and then in Africa it's above $7 billion. It was important to think about conserving that foreign exchange and promote tourism within the continent. But importantly, it was important to have quality healthcare service, especially in non-communicable diseases. And that's why it's a specialty. It's probably the biggest specialty hospital if not in Africa, but in West Africa.
Yeah.
And that was the vision. Access to quality healthcare. It was conserving foreign exchange and the expenditure of our people. It was to create jobs as well. And it's also to help to develop, and also advanced diagnostics. Yeah. And it's also to help promote trade within Africa as well, intra-African trade in services, in healthcare services.
Very, very vital project there. I mean, you got to be healthy to live and live a fulfilling life there. I guess final question for you, looking ahead, how does the Afreximbank plan to expand projects like that one in healthcare across the continent, and I guess maybe other ventures?
Yes, and so as a Pan-African bank, is an initiative we want to roll out in in several other African countries. We already have a roadmap for Central Africa as well as East Africa. So we're going to expand it. This will be the headquarters of the AMC the one here, and then we'll have subsidiaries across, in a sense, across the continent. Yeah. That's the plan. It's not going to stop with this. It's a need that the continent has, as it is with many of our interventions, whether it is in healthcare or whether it is on our industrialization agenda, our industrial parks. It's we try to roll it out around the continent, and as the need arises, but also in the Caribbean, where we have recently made forays into and have partnership countries. Intra-African trade strategy, if I may, is actually to promote trade between and amongst African countries, but also trade between Africa and its diaspora. Right. And the diaspora comes from the fact that we recognize the flow of capital, whether it's human or financial, between Africa and its diaspora. And so, but we made, because the CARICOM community is a block, it was easy also to first extend that to it. But the idea is to extend our interventions across Africa's diaspora in a movement that we now call Global Africa.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, you guys, you're doing a lot. We're looking forward to what promises to be a very exciting annual meetings here in Abuja, and of course the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, the roadshow later this month to sensitize Nigerian businesses, and then of course Algeria later on in the year. Mrs. Kanayo Awani, Executive Vice President, Intra-Africa Trade Export Development Bank at the Afreximbank. Thank you so much for talking to Arise News and the Global Business Report. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.